class 8. As you know that yesterday we have started with the chapter Great Stone Face 2. So now we have read in this chapter, in the first part we have read that there came two rich men in the valley. First was Gather Gold and the second one was the soldier. Okay, right? But both these two were considered as they have earned a lot of name and fame that they were to be the resemblance of Great Stone Face. But they both were not the resemblances. Now in the second part of this stone face that we have started, there arrived a poet who was considered to be the likeness. So everyone thought that he is the actual resemblance to the stone face who has gone far away from the valley. He has celebrated this stone face in his poems also, right? So but what happened? But when you can say Ernest, he has read about the poems, or he has read the poems of this great poet, he has come to know that no, this stone face is not resembling this poet. So here it is mentioned, it is, you can say, oh great stone face. So I'm pointing out here, so this one. So this, oh great stone face, it's not this man worthy to be your likeness. So then he found that this man is not worthy of the kind of, you can say, this man is not worthy of the kind of, you can say, greatness that stone face has. So what he said, that this man is not worthy of your likeness, that this man, he is not resembling you. So the face seemed to smile but did not answer. Again, when he looks at stone face, he always feels that stone face is smiling at him. Again, the stone face smiled, but he did not get any answer, because he himself will get the answer. Now it happened that the poet, though he lived so far away, had not only heard of Ernest, but had thought much about his character and wished to meet this man whose wisdom walked hand in hand. Hand in hand means side by side with the noble simplicity of his life. So now what happened? Now it happened that the poet, though he lived so far away, had not only heard of Ernest, but had thought much about his character. But now what happened? The poet, he has lived far away from this, you can say, valley. But what he thought of Ernest and about his character. And he wished to meet Ernest, as he wanted to see that whether Ernest's wisdom, good qualities, they go hand in hand, as he was noble enough, because he has also heard about the wisdom shown by Ernest. Because as you know that people from far away areas, people, even college professors, they come to Ernest in order to seek his advice, in order to discuss matters with him. So he thought that I want to know that whether his wisdom his wisdom is completely in touch with the noble simplicity of his life. Now, one summer day, he arrived at Ernest's door. So what happened? One summer day, what happened? He arrived at Ernest's door. So one summer day, he came to Ernest's house, where he found the good old man holding a book in his hand. So see, this is the first great quality of Ernest, that he is spending his free time by reading good books. So you know that books, they are always a source of great knowledge. Whatever knowledge you are acquiring, it is just because of the good deeds you do, right? Okay. So what happened on summer day, what he heard when he came to Ernest's door, he was reading books. All the wisdom, all the knowledge that he has got. How he has got that knowledge? He has got that knowledge from, you can say, from reading these great books, which he read, and then with the finger between the leaves, looked lovingly at the great stone face. So he looked at the man, that he was reading the book He has put his finger between the leaves means between the pages of the book in this manner. He has put his finger in the pages of the book and he was looking again at the great stone face. It is just like that he was feeling something very deep. He was thinking, good evening, can you give a traveler a night's shelter? He said, good evening. I'm a traveler, but can you allow me to spend a night with you in your house? Gladly, answered Ernest. Ernest answered gladly means happily. And then he added, smiling, I think I never saw the great stone face look so hospitably at a stranger. So he said, I think I never saw the great stone face look. He said, I have never seen that the great stone face is showing so happy look at a stranger. The poet sat down beside him. Now the poet, he sat like you can see on the next page, just see, like he is sitting in the same manner where Ernest was sitting. The poet sat beside him and he and Ernest talked together and they both were talking to each other. 1 minute. So they both were talking to each other. Never before had the poet talked with man like Ernest, so wise and gentle and kind. So the poet, never before, poet has felt while talking with Ernest, he thought that in my entire life, I have never met a man who is so wise, so gentle, and so kind like that of Ernest. It means he is full of qualities. Ernest, on the other hand, was moved by the living images flung out of the poet's mouth. Flung out means actually it is jump out. Okay. So see, poet was fascinated by the ideas of Ernest. On the other hand, Ernest was also feeling greatly loved. He felt greatly loved to the images. Living images means the thoughts that he has produced, the poet has produced. Even Ernest liked his thoughts. As Ernest listened to the poet, he imagined that the great stone face was bending forward to listen to. So this is just an imagination of Ernest, because Ernest was thinking that this great stone face, it is actually a living character. Okay. So when he was discussing to poet, he felt that this stone face is also, you can say, bending forward to listen to their conversation. So he gazed into the poet's eye. He gazed means looked continuously at the poet's eyes. Who are you, my gifted guest? He asked. He said, who are you? My gifted guest means uninvited. He was an uninvited guest. He was a gifted guest. Okay, means God had sent him as a guest to his house. The poet laid his finger on the book that Ernest had been reading. Now the poet, he put his finger in this manner on the book which Ernest was reading. You have read these poems. You know me then, for I wrote them. He said, you are reading this book, and if you know these poems, you also know me, because it is me only who has written these poems. Again and again, Ernest examined the poet's features. He turned towards the great stone face, then back, and he shook his head and sighed. So now Ernest thought that this great poet has great resemblance with stone face. He is again and again looking, at one time he is looking at the poet, then towards stone face. In this manner he was doing, and he was trying to relate whether this face is resembling to great stone face. Why are you sad? Inquired the poet. Poet said, but why are you sad? Ernest said, because all through life I have awaited the fulfillment of a prophecy. And when I read these poems, I hope that it might be fulfilled in you. So Ernest replied that throughout my life, I awaited the fulfillment of a prophecy. I was just trying that the prophecy would be fulfilled. Okay, which prophecy to be fulfilled? That one day the man would come whose face would resemble great stone face, And I was just waiting for that man to come and wanted to see that what kind of man would be whose face would resemble great stone face. And he shook his head and sighed, but he said no. Then he took a sigh, means, oh, in this manner, he took a deep breath. So what he wanted to see, actually, he wanted to see that great stone face. You hoped, poet answered, faintly smiling, to find in me the likeness of the great stone face. I am not worthy to be its likeness. Poet is saying, you are looking at me and you think that I am resembling this great stone face. He said, no, I'm not worthy of likeness, because I am not worthy means I'm not so great that I should remember this great stone face. I'm not resembling this great stone face because my words, my thoughts, they are not so strong, not so valuable that they should match with the greatness of this great stone face. So Ernest asked, and why not? He pointed to the brook. Are not these thoughts worthy? He said, you? Why not you? He pointed towards that book. The thoughts which you have mentioned here in this poem, they are not worthy to be a likeness. These are great thoughts. You can hear in them the distant voice of a heavenly song. Heavenly song means song of good qualities, okay, in praise of God. But my life, dear Ernest, has not corresponded with my thoughts. Poet is also very true to his heart. He is not telling a lie. He is not behaving like that. If Ernest is thinking that he is the man who resembled that of course he is the man who resembled that great stone face. He said, yes, I admit that these poems or the songs written in this book, they are the voice of a heavenly song. They seem to be heavenly songs which are read or which are sung or which are written in praise of God, with showing good qualities. But he said, my life is not so good. My life is not showing those qualities which I have presented in those songs. Sometimes what happened, the person is something else and he shows himself to be so good, okay, but inside person knows I'm not so good. So this is what has happened to the poet. He said, my thoughts, these thoughts which are presented in this book, they are not resembling my life. I have had grand dreams, but they have been only dreams. He said, yes, of course I had big dreams, rich dreams I had, but these dreams were dreams only. They have not been fulfilled. Sometimes I lack faith in my own thoughts. Why then, pure seeker of the good and true, should you hope to find me in the face of the mountain? He said, actually, my dreams were not fulfilled. Actually, I lacked faith. I even did not believe my dreams. The first thing that you should make your dreams come true is that only you should have faith in your dreams. Okay, this is the first thing. Okay, now he said, but why then, pure seeker of the good, means you want to see the goodness. And why you are looking for that goodness in my face, that I resemble this great stone face? He said, no, I'm not that great stone face. Poet spoke sadly and his eyes were wet with tears. So too were those of Ernest. So when the poet was speaking these lines, his eyes were filled with tears, and in the same way, even Ernest's eyes were filled with tears. At the hour of sunset, as had long been his custom, Ernest was to speak to a group of neighbors in the open air. At the hour of sunset means it is the daily routine of Ernest that in the evening he was customary. Customary means according to a customer, his daily routine, part of a daily routine. He is talking to a group of neighbors while standing outside his house in the open air. Together, he and the poet went to the meeting place arm in arm. Arm in arm means hand in hand. They means they went together. Now, Ernest said, I'm going to meet a group of people. You can also come with me. So they both went there. From there could be seen the great stone face. From there also that great stone face can also be seen. Ernest threw a look of familiar kindness around upon its audience. So Ernest, he has shown the familiarity that he already knew his audience. He began to speak to the people what was in his heart and mind. His words had power because they agreed with his thoughts. So now what happened? He started speaking about his thoughts. And what he was speaking only that was actually in his mind and in his heart. He's not, you can say, showing something false which he did not have. He is actually showing the reality, what he is having in his mind. And his thoughts had reality and depth. So whatever thoughts he was showing, whatever discussion he was doing at that time, his thoughts, they have reality, real thoughts he was telling. And they actually also has depth. Okay, they also has depth. It means that very deep thoughts he was explaining. He was explaining his thoughts very deeply. This is the reason why people listen to him, that his thoughts are so deep. Okay, so this is the reason. It was not mere breath that the preacher, because they harmonized with life which he had always lived. So what kind of thoughts he was explaining? He was explaining the thoughts which were harmonizing with his life. Harmonizing with his life means which were completely in, you can say, completely in union with his life. Means this shows that these thoughts which Ernest was explaining were his own thoughts, as these thoughts were of his life. He was showing the thoughts of his life, but not that of any other thing. So, it was not mere breath that the preacher uttered, they were the words of life. It was not only breath, means preacher means, now Ernest is called as a preacher. Why preacher? Means who is a preacher? Who preach good values to other people, you know, those saints whose you can say lectures we listen. Who are these are preachers. They are telling us the reality of life, they are telling us the good values of life. So now what happened, what he said, he is called as a preacher. So now what he was preaching was actually what it was the words of his life. What it was the words of his life. Means they were of course based on his experience of life. It was only the experience of life that he was preaching. A life of good deeds and selfless love was melted into them. So what kind of thoughts? Of good deeds that he has done. And selfless love means service of others, because without thinking of his, you can say, selfish motive. He was just talking about this kind of selfless love. And he listened, felt that the life and character of Ernest were a nobler strain of poetry than he had never written. So when poet was listening to the thoughts presented, to the discussions done by Ernest with his audience, then he came to know that even in his songs, he has never shown these kind of thoughts which are so noble. Means his thoughts were noblest of all. So what he felt that even in his songs, he has never celebrated these kind of thoughts. His eyes filled with tears, and he said to himself that never was there so worthy a sage as that mild, sweet, thoughtful face with the glory of white hair. It is diffused about it. Okay, diffuse means spread. So now, then at that moment, poet thought, yes, this is that great man who is resembling that great stone face. And at that time, the poet's eyes, they were filled with tears. His eyes were filled with tears. Then what he said, He said that that he is a man who is worthy of a sage. Sage means saint. That this man has such great thoughts that he is actually like that of a saintly person, and so mild nature, not so aggressive, without any kind of anger, sweet and thoughtful. Thoughtful means thoughtful face. His face shows, you know, that some of the persons means what kind of personality you house in your body, it is reflected on your face. And this is exactly being shown on Ernest's face, that his face shows the thoughtfulness, the greatness that he has in his mind, and with the glory of white hair diffused about it. And his white hair, it, you can say, it increased the glory, the beauty around his face. It means the beauty, it never lies in the, you can say, it never is, you can say, only the outside beauty. You see a person, you think that he is very beautiful, but what is actual beauty? But the actual beauty is beauty of thoughts. Okay, so this is the value that the chapter is delivering to us, that one should believe in the greatness of thoughts. It is only in those great thoughts that that the greatness of a person ever lies. So now what happened, that the poet has come to know that he is not that stone face, but actually who has a resemblance to great stone face? It is only Ernest. Ernest has the resemblance to that great stone face. So at a distance, but clearly to be seen high up in the golden light of the setting sun, appeared the great stone face with the white mist around it, like the white hairs around the brow of Ernest. Brow means forehead. So now, when the poet looked at stone face in the golden light, this was the great stone face was shining, and around it the mist has formulated white aura. Similarly, then he looked at Ernest, he found the similar face of Ernest as that of great stone face, and his white hair is showing him exactly like that of stone face. And at that moment, Ernest once took on an expression so grand that the poet moved to throw his arms up and shout, "Behold, behold," means stop, stop. Ernest is himself the likeness of great stone face. So while talking at that time with the audience, Ernest has shown this kind of expression that made the poet exactly believe that yes, this is the great stone face. And at that moment he shouted, "Stop, stop, stop, just listen to me. The great stone face is none other than, it is only this, you can say, Ernest. Ernest is actually having the resemblance with great stone face." Then all the people looked and saw that what the poet said was true. Then all the people looked at the great stone face and at Ernest also, and they also found, yes, what the poet is saying is absolutely true. There is nothing wrong in what he is saying. So the prophecy was fulfilled. Finally, that statement made long ago that a man would come who would be a resemblance with great stone face is finally fulfilled. But Ernest, having finished what he had to say, took the poet's arm and walked slowly homeward, still hoping that some wiser and better man than himself would by and by appear. By and by means in the future time would appear, bearing a resemblance to the great stone face. But see again the greatness of Ernest, that he has not taken that crown of glory. He has not taken that greatness. He has not taken that greatness. Otherwise, if we do a small deed, we show it to be a large one, and we boast about it. Yes, many ye kiya, I have done it. But what about this? You can say Ernest, he did not took the crown of this glory. And what has happened? He took the hand of this great poet and moves towards his house, and still hoping that by and by means that in the future time, a man would come whose face would resemble this great stone face. And this is what the greatness of a greatness of a man lies, that being a rich person of thoughts, he never boasts about himself. He thought that yes, something better is always there than me. Yes, there is no doubt in this. We never say that this is the better one, because better always demands for the next better one. Okay, so he is always thinking that one day again a man would come whose face would resemble great stone face. So what this chapter is delivering to us is that the chapter is delivering to us that we must believe in oneself. We should have power to believe in our dreams only. If we have power to believe in our dreams only then we will have the greatness of thoughts. Only then we will have the ability to be a great person, to turn ourselves into a great person. Okay? Otherwise, we won't be able to, you can say, to enjoy the greatness of life. And this is exactly what has happened with Ernest. So what he has told us that it is only the great thoughts that a man has that makes him that makes him really a great person. It is not the skin deep. Beauty is not skin deep. Means it is only the looks of the person that matters, but it is the richness of a person. These are the great thoughts of a person that matters, and this has clearly been shown in this chapter, that is Great Stone Face. So tomorrow we will continue with the discussion of the question answers. Now, if you have any doubts, you can ask me.